Cape Fear Business Roundtable is sponsored by two branding partners located under one roof right here in southeastern North Carolina. Pioneer Strategies is a strategic communication firm focused on helping you build success through effective strategic communication. Pioneer Specialties is your promotional products partner, ready to help you through the entire process from product research through product delivery. For more information about our sponsors, visit capefearbusiness.com.
Welcome to Cape Fear Business Roundtable. I'm your host, Frank Williams, and today we have with us Chris DeHart with All About Energy Solutions. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And I have known Chris for a while, and we'll talk about what his business does in a minute, but he is one of the few people who has been in both the attic and the crawl space of both residences that I have here in Brunswick County, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But Chris, one thing I do like to ask people, obviously we live in a very fast-growing area, lots of people moving in from lots of places. So tell us, are you originally from here? And if not, how long have you been here and what brought you to southeastern North Carolina?
All my family lives in Kentucky. My mom was working her way here. I was born in Morgantown, West Virginia, and thank God she moved to Wilmington, North Carolina when I was about 9 months old. So I just love the area. Over the years, getting to meet so many business owners that I remember specifically my fifth year in business, it was a little bit of a struggle. And one of my customers showed me their books and showed me how they plateaued and shot up after their fifth year. And he's like, Chris, I have enough money where I could live anywhere in the world. We could pack up and move to Italy and be never work another day in our life, but we choose to live right here.
Right.
Kind of says a lot about the area that we live in.
And the fact that so many people who vacationed here now live here.
Yeah.
That's how they found it, is they came here on vacation and then they decided, that's where I want to live either when I retire or if they can work remotely, they can do that from here as well. And when did you start your business?
November 1st of 2010. It's a pretty cool
2010.
story.
Cool. And well, obviously we're going to talk about work, but when you're not working, what are your favorite things to do in southeastern North Carolina? Places to go, places to eat, anything you want to share?
Oh man. Whenever I can get on my boat at Morningstar Marinas, I'm doing that. It's been a really windy year, so I haven't really had many days to go out yet, but love fishing, love being on the water. Really involved in my kids' sports. My daughter plays travel soccer and
Cool.
she's breaking records. She's putting Brunswick County on the map for
Awesome.
soccer.
That's
So
cool.
she's about to go into her junior year, and probably the third or fourth game of the year, she will have already broken the school record for how many goals she scored, which is awesome.
That is awesome. My nephew's son, which makes me feel old to say that that I'm talking about my nephew's son is a rising sophomore at Hoggard next year. And the only time I've ever rooted against North Brunswick was when he played against North Brunswick in basketball this past year. He's on JV basketball, but I brought him up because you mentioned breaking records. He made varsity track as a freshman and broke the school freshman record as a freshman. And the record was 20 years old, so older than him.
That's
And I
awesome.
thought that was we're not sure how he learned to run so fast or what he was running from, but he's fast.
I'm
Well,
also
let's
on the council at Troop 7467 or 747. My son's in Boy Scouts, so
Oh, cool.
we meet right there in Leland, and it's been really good for him.
I was in Troop 265 many years ago here in Leland. It's been longer ago than I want to admit. And I had two of my scout friends at an event the other day, and I said, when we were together in scouts, this person had hair, this one had brown hair, and I was skinny. So we've changed a little since then.
Yeah.
But well, changing gears, tell us a little bit about All About Energy Solutions. Obviously, I mentioned that you've been in my attics and crawl spaces. Tell us what kind of things you do that would take you to those fun places, and what kind of customers you work with, and how you help them.
That's what I like to say. We cover everything from the crawl space to the attic. There are crawl space companies out there, and there are companies that do attic, but we kind of specialize in anything you can do to save money on your energy bill. So when we're looking at a crawl space, we try to educate our customers. We try to say we take them to the College of Energy Knowledge.
College of
So
Energy Knowledge. I like that.
you had some quotes on your crawl space, and those quotes get crazy, crazy high. We're very affordable when it comes to the crawl space because I know you only lose 10% of your energy through your crawl space. So, from a return on investment, you don't really get a good return on your investment when you're dealing with crawl spaces. But in the wintertime, 90% of the air you breathe comes from your crawl space. So, it makes you want to have a clean crawl space when
Right.
you think of it like that. And then we're coming into the summer months. Those attics get hot, man. The hottest attic I've ever been in was in Carolina Beach. It was 178 degrees in that attic. Brutal. Turned a 2-day job into a 3-day job. And when we were done, I got the homeowner up in the attic and we're taking the temperature. It was 105 degrees in the attic. And he had the nerve to say, "I thought you said the attic wouldn't be over 100." I'm like, "I didn't know your attic was going to be the hottest attic we've
Right.
ever seen. But to go from 178 degrees to 105, man, talk
That
about
is
savings."
substantial.
His
And I'm
thermostat was running on average 15 hours a day before we did our work. When we were done, it
wow.
was running on average 8.
That's a
So
big difference,
it's
and I'm
almost in
guessing
half.
talking about crawl spaces and the fact that you breathe so much air from them, we live in a place where there is a lot of moisture, and I'm guessing that could impact the quality of the air that comes up out of that crawl space if it's not properly managed.
And the more dense, the wetter the air is, the easier it is to come in the house. So that's normal, right? Air is going to come in and it keeps flowing all the way out your ridge vent. That's what we want. So a house with 2 people showering and cooking, that's 2.6 gallons in water vapor that needs to leave your house per week, right?
Wow.
So your HVAC takes care of half of that if it's running properly. The other half is through the natural ventilation. So when you take a 50-year-old ranch style house that doesn't have a great ridge vent and doesn't have a good vapor barrier in the crawl space, that number significantly goes up. They have so much moisture coming up from the ground, and the ridge vent isn't taking the moisture out like we want. So that's why they keep their thermostat at 70 degrees because they're so hot because of the humidity. If you remove that humidity, it could be 75 or 76 and feel the same. So that's what we try to do. We try to remove the humidity for that reason. And then what's crazy, you remember COVID? That was tough for businesses. I remember people not letting us in their crawl space during COVID, like we were gonna be, germs were gonna be coming up from their floor. But that year, 68 million times in the US, people Googled, "Is my home making me sick?" Because people that were usually leaving for work every day and
Right.
coming home, they weren't in their house as much. But when they were in their house all day long, it literally caused issues because the respiratory, the air you're breathing, it makes you want to take a look at where that air is you're breathing. And man, I've heard some horror stories of people getting really bad mold in their crawl space, never doing anything about it, and dogs dying. I mean, it's a real thing. But I try to usually rub my finger on the mold and go, "You're gonna be okay." But don't recommend doing that too often.
Right.
But we all have mold, right? Every house has mold. If you walk outside right now, you're breathing mold. So mold isn't as big of a deal as some of these crawl space companies try to make it out to be. I've had customers with, 3 crawl space quotes. 24,000, 16,000, and I go in there for 6,000 and take care of everything, well less than half the cost. So, I built my business on common sense. I think me and you agree politically a lot just using common sense. And that's how I run my business. It's the same exact thing.
I sometimes wonder how common sense got its name since it's not that common, but that's a whole different podcast. We could
Yeah.
have a whole different conversation about that. But well, tell us what kind of things you do in someone's attic or crawl space that helps them with their energy bill. Like, I think I called you the first time when Hurricane Florence decided to suck all the insulation out of my house, and so that's
Yeah.
how we initially did business the first time.
Yeah. So attics it's pretty simple, right? So the Department of Energy says it takes 9 hours for your attic to cool down in the summertime. So if you've been doing any work outside in the garden like I have, 8:30 at night, the sun's setting, 9 hours later, your attic has cooled off and the sun's already rising again. So the heat in your attic is why your AC runs so much. So if you look at your 12 months of your energy bill, your highest bill is usually the coldest month because our houses really aren't designed to keep heat in. They're designed to keep heat out because it's hot for 5 months out of the year,
Right.
maybe 6. So because of that, that's kind of what we do is we bring your insulation up to code if it's not up to code for Duke customers. If I go in your attic and seal the penetrations in your attic, meaning any hole that's in the sheetrock between
Right.
lights, fans, anything like that, and I just bring the insulation up to code, they're giving homeowners $700 for me to do that,
I actually
which is
was able
great.
to. I received one of those after you did the attic here at the house where I'm doing this podcast from.
Yep, so you get a $700 rebate, you can't beat that. But the thing that I try to remind my clients is insulation doesn't stop heat. It just slows the transfer of heat.
Right.
So if you have this much and you blow this much, it's gonna stop more heat, but heat's still gonna get through. That's why we specialize in a reflective full radiant barrier. It's kinda like that silver visor you put in your windshield to keep the heat
Right.
out of your vehicle, Frank. And what it does is it keeps the heat in the winter, it keeps the heat out in the summer. I like to say there's no home improvement project you can do that will pay for itself as quickly as that does. And when we talk about crawl spaces, I would rather you have a good vapor barrier on the ground than insulation. If I had to choose one or the other, just put a good vapor barrier down. That stops all the humidity from coming in the house. Insulating a crawl space, I tell you what, this winter we've had, as cold as it was, a lot of people had rodent issues. And one of the biggest reason you have rodent issues is bird feeders or insulation. Because if a rodent can get into your crawl space and nest in your insulation, they got a nice place to live. So when we remove all that insulation and do an encapsulation and insulate the walls, now we've stopped where critters can get in. But critters, if they do get in, they're not going to stay. So that's
That
an
makes
advantage of
sense.
having an encapsulation versus traditional insulation. But not everybody needs an encapsulation. It depends on your lot, how wet it is, how you live in the house. There's just so many variables. So your house is literally like a fingerprint. Every house is different.
And that makes sense depending on how you use it. I'm doing this podcast from the house where I grew up, which my father, as you know, passed away last year. And you did the attic and the crawl space here. And I have noticed a significant difference in the power bill here from what he was paying. I mean, it's down a lot from what he was paying. Now, granted, I'm not here 24/7 like he was. And I also
Yeah.
don't keep the heat on in the summer when it's already hot like he did in his final few years. But it has made a noticeable difference in the quality of the air and the power bill in this house.
Well, when you mention that, something that all your viewers should know is when you're dealing with your thermostat, when you're gone all day, it doesn't need to be it. Like, so what temperature do you keep it at now, Frank?
In this house, when I'm not here, I keep it where I've got it set on a range where if it gets above 77, it comes on, or if it goes below 67, the heat comes on. Now, when I know
Perfect.
I'm gonna be here, I do turn it down because what I did the other day, I didn't get here until noon, and it had a hard time cooling down because I had let it warm up. So I had it set a little cooler when I know I'm gonna be here and during the day right
Yeah,
now, but
that's perfectly fine, right? So when you're gone for the day, taking your thermostat up to 78 is great. If you like it at 74, when you come home, take it from 78 to 74. Let it do it in one full swoop because 90% of your energy is spent the first 60 seconds the thermostat comes on. So what you
interesting.
don't want is it coming on, cooling really quickly, and then cutting off. Cooling really quickly and cutting off. A good example that I gave you when I was out there was, let's say your thermostat comes on 4 times in an hour and runs for 8 minutes each time. Quick math, that's 32 minutes. Let's say your neighbor's, his comes on 2 times in an hour and his runs for 22 minutes. Well, that's 44 minutes. 44 is way higher than 32, but you're going to have a higher bill because you have 4 startups, he has 2.
Okay.
So there's nothing wrong with your system running for a while. Now that's cooling. Heating is different. You never want to heat more than 2 degrees at a time. So when you're gone, you can bring it down to 60. But when you come home, you can't go from 62 to 68. You got to go from 60 to 62. Let it run and stop. And then 62 to 64. Because if you heat more than 2 degrees, your auxiliary heat kicks on, emergency heat, and you pay big money.
And those are things that I never knew. So obviously, you know a lot about what you do, and I can hear the passion and the knowledge in what you're saying. So tell me, how did you get into this business? What made you choose this as a career path and decide to start All About Energy Solutions?
I would say it found me. I was in Iraq in 2004, and when I got back, lived in Raleigh for a short period of time. Worked at Saks Fifth Avenue doing asset protection. It was really fun catching rich people stealing because everybody we caught had the money to pay for the stuff that they were stealing.
Which is sad, but that's a different
But after
podcast as
about
well.
after about 8 months, they offered me my boss's job, and I declined because I wanted to be here. Wilmington's home. I say Wilmington. I used to joke about running for office in Leland and changing the name to West Wilmington. But so when I got here, I got into the home improvement business. My brother owns an irrigation company. I was doing a service call for him. The gentleman really liked me and offered me a job. So excited, go home, tell my fiance, hey, this guy wants to pay me commission. I can make 6 figures selling metal roofs. And she said, you can't do commission. We're trying to buy a house. So I had to decline that job. And he said, all right, fine. I'll pay you $800 a week to be my houseboy. So he paid me $800 a week to clean his pond, clean his yard, cut his grass, buy his beer. Like literally, I was his assistant. And finally, he came to me one day and said, I want you to go canvassing for me, door to door canvassing, and I'll pay you $75 per lead you get for metal roofs. First week, we got like 22 leads, and he's like, I'm not paying you $75 per lead anymore. I'll give you a piece of the commission. I'll give you a commission for any lead you get that turns into a sale. So I did that for about a year. And then he offered me a full-time job running his marketing. So I ran the marketing department for the company, officially got into sales, became the number one salesman, then became a sales manager. I took that company to be a $4 million company to a $10 million company. And needless to say, he wasn't he had opposite morals that I do. And it didn't really, it wasn't somebody that I wanted to work for. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So
I have worked in those situations before. I understand that.
So was trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I got a call from somebody that said, "I hear you're on the market. You can come work for me." And it was a company that kind of did not what I do. They sold windows, but they sold insulation. So I quickly became their number one salesman, became their sales manager. And then I'll never forget it. I was in Ada, North Carolina, selling this roof to this guy. And he used to build houses, but he was legally blind now. So I'm taking his finger and running it over the metal, really trying to paint a picture with my words. And he said, "Son, sit down and tell me everything I need to know about you in 5 minutes." So I did. And he said, "If you ever want to start your own business, I'll stake you in business." I sold that roof. It was a $22,000 roof. I turned it in, and the owner handed me $100 bill and said, "That's your commission. You sold it for too low." Well, I might not be good with letters and words, but I'm really good at numbers, and I know how much profit was in that job. So I called that gentleman and said, "Were you serious about staking me in business?" And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Why don't you cancel that roof? I'll do it for cheaper." And long story short, I went out there and talked to him, and he wrote me a check for $15,000. And November 1st of 2010, I started All About Energy Solutions. And I like to say, my installers are so professional, we show up wearing a shirt and tie. We were filming an attic in Compass Point, a commercial, and I had my guys wear shirts and ties behind me while I was talking. And I said, "As you can see, we have very professional installers." And the homeowner said, "I got an idea." And he runs in his bedroom and comes out with a tuxedo shirt. He said, "I got this on a cruise. You should have this be your work shirts." And I was like, "Well, tuxedos are for parties, but suits are professional." So that's where the suit shirt
That's
came to be.
cool.
We've been wearing them for about 12 years now.
That's a cool, it's cool to have things like that that are your little brand stick that people associate with you. So that's and obviously I can hear the passion about what you do when I talk to you. What do you love about what you do, and also what do you think sets you apart from any competitors that are out there?
Man, when I'm done with a project and and I have that same conversation with a homeowner and say, "Why did you decide to do business with me?" They say, "Well, you had more reviews than everybody else, but really it was the price." I literally can do a crawl space and an attic, like a full crawl space encapsulation, a full attic install for cheaper than what customers or companies are doing just crawl spaces for. I won't mention their name because I don't like talking about competitors
Right.
because I don't really look at as other companies as competitors, right? Unless they're doing things wrong, then I have to,
Right.
I gotta say something and stand up for what we do because I'm passionate about what we do. I've had solar companies come in and not lower people's energy bill by 50%, and I've gone into homes and lowered bills by 50% doing what I do. So, but they, the owner of a company asked me to lunch, and we had lunch. He's a veteran. I'm a veteran. Getting along just fine, and we started talking, and I said, "Well, I'd be happy to take care of anything you need." And he's like, "Yeah, that's perfect because I really don't see you as a competitor." And I was like, "Frank, if you know anything about me, I'm about the most competitive person you've ever met." So I was like, "Why would I not be a competitor?" And he said, "What's your average ticket item?" And I said, "About 5 grand." He said, "Mine's 25." And I said, "How do you sleep at night?" And he said, "Like a baby, because I'm going to sell this company in 3 or 4 years." I said, "Well, my son's going to run this company someday, so I don't have the luxury of overcharging people." Needless to say, there wasn't many more words spoken at that lunch.
Right.
Just because my brain can't fathom how they get people to spend this much money for stuff that they don't need. I put a 10 mil poly under your house and under your dad's house, and I'm a pretty strong guy. I can't rip it. They want to charge an extra $2,500 to put a 20 mil bulletproof liner down in your crawl space. You don't need it. So that's why what separates me different from other. I've had people call me that want an encapsulation. I look at the house. They've never had rodent issues. It's dry as a bone. Ma'am, you don't need a dehumidifier under your house. You don't need a dehumidifier under your house. So I try to look every house as its own thing and see what's going to make the most and what their goal is. Some people could care less because, right, we mentioned all the people from up north coming down here. That's one of my biggest problems. They're used to $500 and $600 energy bills. So when they come here and see a $300 energy bill, they're like, oh, this is great. I'm like, I got a 3,200 square foot house. My average bill is $125. 300 is robbery. Like you're paying way too much. And people just don't know. So
How
that's
many
my
rounds of
job.
golf could they buy for that savings, though?
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot. So, I jokingly say our government wastes a lot of money on things, but with solar, I know people that have spent $35,000 and their bill went from a $250 bill to a $100 bill. It's only saving them 150 bucks, but as taxpayers, right? We spent $18,000 for that one person to go
Right.
from $250 to $100. I think it makes a lot more sense to give 18 people on that street $1,000 to do what I do, which is I call it solar prep. Before you create energy, you need to conserve first. And that's what we do. We try to get the bill down low so you don't need as many solar panels if you are going to go with solar.
Well, to change gears a little bit, and to
Yeah.
start to wrap this up, I love to hear for anybody I have on to share anything you've learned with people during your career, because I love for anybody who watches this to get something out of it that they can apply. So tell me something you've learned during your career that you wish you'd known when you started out.
That it's okay to say no.
That is an important one. I mean, I had somebody years ago, a consultant, make the comment. He said, "Who you choose not to work with is as important as who you choose to work with." And the worst thing you can do is promise something you can't deliver or don't want to deliver, and that's not your skill set. And
Yeah, when I first started, I would do anything. I mean, we painted houses. I mean, there's a client I still have today. They own a nuclear consulting firm out of their house, and they'll have us come and paint walls. We're not painters, but they
right,
just don't trust people in their house. They trust me and my team, and so we do that. But I'll have people come and want me to put insulation in their crawl space with no vapor barrier down. And I did that 10 years ago. I would never do that now in a million years because that insulation is going to get ruined within
right.
months. So that's the biggest thing I've learned is to say no to jobs that sometimes people let you know who they are right when you meet them. And when you see
Yes.
that, and they ask for something out of the norm, like I had a client recently that really wants cellulose insulation in their attic. I don't believe in cellulose. I don't like cellulose. It makes the house dusty. It was never designed for insulation. There's a lot of reasons. And 10 years ago, I would have done it because 10 years ago, I did do it. We did it for a client and it was nasty and brutal. And I'm okay with saying no.
I think that's a great lesson, and it also allows you to focus on what you want to do, what you're passionate about, and who you can really help.
Can I share with you about Veterans Memorial Reef? I don't think I told you about our launch we just had.
Yeah, let's come back to that at the end because I was going to ask you about the veteran stuff in a minute, but
Okay.
hold that thought for 1 second.
Yeah.
Similar question to what I just asked you, but if somebody came to you and was starting out in their career, starting a business, what advice would you give that person?
Networking. Networking is 10 times better than marketing. I had times where I spent, man, $6,000 a month on advertising, and I honestly got more work for doing the little things and inviting a heat and air guy out to lunch. And, I just had this conversation with somebody in my office. Long Island Eatery has one of the best breakfast sandwiches around. So when I go and pick it up, I always get two. I'm only going to eat one, and I always give the other one away. And if my employees are already gone or something like that, I will drive it to a local heat and air company that he's given me over $1 million worth of work over the years. And one of the biggest reasons why is I just go in and hand him a sandwich every once in a while. The guy
Little
loves
things
to
like that
eat.
make a huge difference.
He's so busy, he doesn't have time to eat. So taking the time to do that, or if somebody I know has an animal, a dog that dies, there's a book called Dog Heaven. I buy that book and I send it to him and say, sorry for your loss. It's the little things like that I think
Absolutely.
will they go so much further than just spending money on advertising.
I've said often that I believe that relationships are the currency of leadership in a business. I mean, certainly there's financial currency, but relationships are to me the key to it. And I had a former client that I worked with over 20 years ago, and had worked with them again a few years later, but it's been over a decade since I worked directly with them. Called me 2 days ago because they're pitching a client and wanted to include us in the proposal. And I think some of it's because the quality of the work we did, but I know that it's because we kept in touch with them and it stayed with them even when we stayed in touch, even when they weren't sending us business, and
Yeah.
just built maintain that relationship. And that's why they thought of us. He probably would have forgotten about me if it were not for that.
Well, it's free too,
Yeah.
right? It's free to just reach out and be like, "Hey man, how's your week going? How's business?" Anything. Just having that conversation every once in a while and trying to stay top of mind with them makes the world a difference. I learned it probably about 10 years ago. I wouldn't hear from this company and I would give them a referral, and that week I would get two back. I didn't hear from this guy for 6 weeks, but because I gave him a referral, I'm top of mind. And so that's if you see somebody that has budget blinds thing on their counter and like, oh, are you thinking about getting blinds? You should call Jeff Britt with Affordable Blinds and More. That's it. It's just a soft
Right.
handoff. I know the owner, he's a hard worker, and it's a good lead for him. And I helped my client, right? Because I trust this guy's gonna do a better job for less money. So that's why I try to provide that service.
And that you make yourself a resource, and being a resource
Yep.
comes back to you.
Yes,
Now let's
sir.
go back to, first of all, thank you for your service. I was going to say that, but tell me about what you were just talking about with the Veterans Wreath.
Yeah. So my VA doctor, he started Veterans Memorial Reef about 6 years ago,
Okay.
and I was his bodyguard in Iraq. So it's just probably cool to go in full circle. And now I'm on the board of directors of his nonprofit. So
That's another
we
example of
offer
those relationships that stand the test of time. I mean, that's that working in a different form.
we offer a unique 3-day memorial for your loved ones, for veterans. So day one, they come with the veterans' ashes. We put it in an underwater urn and put it in this 2,000-pound marker, right? Once we cement it in, they personalize it. One of my favorite ones is a grandkid brought a baseball and he signed the baseball and we put it in the concrete.
That's cool.
So that's day one. Day two, the first couple ceremonies we had at Battleship Park. So we line them up right there on the river. We have a ceremony at Battleship Park. It was great. And day three, we take them 5 miles offshore and lower them to their final resting place. So I can say we just had a successful launch. We had 9 more veterans that we put out on the reef. So there's a total of 39 veterans out there right now, and one veteran service dog. He was worked with special operations with the Coast Guard. So he's out there as well, and they've changed over time, right? So we found a company to 3D print these concrete markers for us, so they look more like coral. And right after this launch, we had 2 weeks ago, I took my boat out, and right after the state left, we dove it, and it was fish were already claiming each marker,
Mm.
which was so cool. There were literally black bass, male and a female, right in front of these markers that we just dropped down an hour ago. Then they're already making it their home. If other fish would come by, they'd like shoo them off. And we got to look between markers we dropped in 2024 versus markers we dropped in 2023. They're about 25 feet away from each other. Frank, they're connected now. There
Huh.
is coral and greenery coming up from the seabed that now it's connected. So the whole idea of our nonprofit is honoring those who have served as they continue to serve. So we're running out of green space, right? There's not a lot of cemeteries. There's 7 in North Carolina and 4 of them are already full. So if I want to be buried in a national cemetery with my brothers and sisters, they'd send me all the way to Salisbury, North Carolina. I don't want to be in Salisbury, North Carolina. I want to be here. I want to be here. So we're working on some big things and taking this global, but we got 39 veterans down there right now, and it's just it's an awesome 3-day experience for the families to give them closure. And what we're doing for the marine life is and the ecosystem is pretty amazing. UNCW actually put some sensors on one of the markers that they're going to just be doing some testing, and I'll send you some pictures after this.
Yeah.
We just dove it. The ones that we launched last year already have so much growth on them. Like we have to go down there here in a couple weeks with paint scrapers and scrape off the plaques because there's so much growth already growing on them, which is awesome.
And do you have a website for your nonprofit, or how can people find out more about it?
Yep, veteransmemorialreef.com, veteransmemorialreef.org. We own them both.
Cool. Awesome. And I would certainly encourage people to check that out. That sounds like a great cause. And, we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of this great country. And we wouldn't be here if not for the people who had fought for our freedom over the course of that 250 years. So thank you for your service and what you're doing for those others who have served as well.
Well, thank you for your service to our community. You've done a very big
Mm.
service for our community over the years, and it's a pleasure to call you a friend.
Well, thank you, and likewise. Well, to close this out, I like to go back and ask another less businessy question. So, tell us what you're currently reading, or what types of books you like to read, either for enjoyment or for self improvement. Either one.
Yeah, reading's tough for me with my ADHD brain, but right now it's Killing Lincoln, or sorry, Killing Kennedy. I already read Killing Lincoln, and I'm reading Killing Kennedy, and it's just really cool to dive into not only what it was like when I read Killing Lincoln back then, but Killing Kennedy and just navigating. I'm becoming more and more of a conspiracy theorist. I like that shirt. I'm all out of conspiracy theories because all mine have already come true. The more we learn over the years, and it's just pretty cool to dive into that history and know a little bit more about our country, how it was
Right.
founded, the whole nine yards. Because a lot of stuff we read in school books isn't always accurate. So it's cool to see a couple different sides of things.
And yeah, I might have to check those out. I've not read those. I've read lots of books. I've got the book on Lincoln back here, the Team of Rivals book. I don't know if you've read that. It's an excellent book on how he pulled a lot of the people who opposed him when he initially ran together in his cabinet. People who did not like him and did not like each other, but he pulled them together because he knew they each had something to offer. And it was a really interesting,
And
very long book.
they brought that up in Killing Lincoln as well. Like, I forget who it was. Not this. It was somebody pretty high up, and he hated Lincoln. He hated him,
Yeah.
and Lincoln brought him in. But how great would that be nowadays? To do that. I jokingly, my dentist is very liberal, and I'm pretty conservative, and I feel like every time I get my teeth cleaned, we solve half the world's problems. Like, what do you want? All right, give me this. Done. Easy. Like, it's a respect thing, and that's what compassion and respect has left us as society. I like to say there's a lot of keyboard bullies out there now. I think those are two things that are really, really, really lacking in society.
And I'll close it out with this point of agreement. When I was a kid, I had to be friends with whoever was in bike riding distance. I didn't
Mhm.
have Facebook or something where I could connect with somebody across the country. So you, by definition, got to be friends with a lot of people who were very different because they were the ones within geographic proximity. And now I think, social media has a lot of good points, but it also puts people in echo chambers where they connect with people who reinforce what they already think and don't ever hear a different opinion, and they don't know how to talk to somebody who disagrees. And going back to networking to me is just about making friends before you need them, and that's what relationships are about. And we could solve so many problems sitting down over a cup of coffee and talking with somebody rather than throwing darts at them online.
100%.
Well,
Respect. The
respect and
golden rule. Remember that one? The golden
exactly.
rule.
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Chris, thank you for joining us today. And for anyone who's tuning in, I encourage you to check out his company, All About Energy Solutions, and I will tag their social media in the post about this. And Chris, thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks, Frank.